Hey Andy, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you, David?
Oh, I can't complain
Mr.
too much.
Herring. Happy post-Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy post Thanksgiving. I always think the next day after Thanksgiving is kind of like it's not really recovery from Thanksgiving. It's
Well,
just
not for
like
us.
it's just like that day before the world's going to kick your ass.
Yeah,
Because
it's kind of like a pause
yeah,
day.
because like it's a pause day, and by noon tomorrow it'll be just right back to normal.
Yeah. And
But
then Monday, it's going to be everyone and their dog wants everything done before the week
right
before Christmas.
now,
Right.
yeah,
Because I put it off all year, but now it's important. Now it's your problem because I didn't take care of my problem. Oh yeah, we're in the same boat, brother.
yeah, I am. I don't know, man. I've So how have you been?
Busy up and down, trying to get. I'm going a new
So
direction with the Rebels. We're going to go off Facebook and we're going to change the group a little bit. So get it out of the
what does that mean?
Zuckerberg realm. Go ahead.
Oh, so what does that mean? What's the goal?
Well, the goal is to get a community that is less visible, I guess, when it comes down to it. We've had a problem over the history of the group of people finding a way in and people doing screenshots and people tattling on what's happening in the rebel group.
Yeah, trying to blackball people. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
There's been plenty of people been blacklisted because of what they did or said in the group. So to protect the membership and to allow for more free flow of ideas amongst the members, we're going to take it off of Facebook.
Okay, sounds good. I mean, I think that's a great idea. I think what I've benefited from in doing a community that we just hold a meeting every couple of weeks, do some posts, but we have conversations outside of true social media where people that do not normally speak.
Exactly.
And that really is the difference, because if you really get down to it, most of the traffic we see on social media is our lurkers that talk to us at some other time.
Right.
But they don't exactly participate because often they are afraid of being sanctioned for that participation. And
yeah.
And I think that, and so, I mean, I think that's wise. And I also think that, like if you got to get on there and talk about like something that's new that's on the horizon, you probably don't want to talk to the whole world about it.
No.
I mean,
you really don't.
I may talk about my tools, but I'm not giving them to you.
What did Sun Tzu say? Bad boys move in silence.
Mm-hmm.
Don't telegraph your next move. Let the enemy know about your next move when you make it.
Yeah.
So, a lot of that.
Yeah, it's like announcing tariffs.
Maybe.
Anyway, I noticed that you picked up your PA license in Texas.
I did. My goal is to have a license in every state where I support contractors. And that gives me my hope and dreams. That gives me a little bit more leverage, or at least standing, when I'm going toe-to-toe with these adjusters.
Right. It also lets you not ever be accused of engaging in something you're not engaging in.
Exactly.
And so it's very good. It's very good protection. I think that's phenomenally smart. I also think that scares the heck out of some people.
Well, I hope it does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you, Andy, you are a disruptor. I mean, I can say that I'm disruptive of process, but you are disruptive just as a course of living. Okay, you are. That's what I find interesting about you, to be
just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and it's like my wife said to me, she said, what would you do if like the whole world got jacked up and you didn't have any of your whole businesses were gone? I said, I'd build another one. She says, when? I said, about a minute or two after the old ones left. And she said to me, she said, why? And I said, because it's who I am. I mean, it's what I do. I mean, like it's just me. I mean, you have to have, if you're mentally diseased enough to accept what you are, then, you just have to go there. And I mean, let's face it, Andy, you got to admit to me that the existence in this business is a manner of crazy that almost none of our family or friends actually understand at all. any level whatsoever.
If you have sustained in any way at a higher level in the restoration industry, you're crazy. You got a little bit of crazy. Some of
Yeah.
us have a lot of crazy.
Yeah. I had a guy that left a business. He just pulled the ripcord and said, I'm out, and, which we don't see very often. And
No.
he went and started a lawn care business.
Okay.
And
How
I
long
called him.
did it last?
Called him at 6 months into it, and what he said to me was so freaking telling. I said, "How's the lawn care business?" He says, "It's popping." He says, "But it's really boring." He said, "I mean, really boring." And he says, "But I don't wake up every morning angry."
Ooh.
And so I'm staying with it until for a while. And I thought just that statement, I don't wake up in the morning angry. And I thought,
That's
oh my God.
That's
Like,
everything.
well, I mean, it's, and I got to thinking about what's the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning? Who didn't pay? Who didn't answer the email? Why can't it's in the estimate? You know, I mean, like,
Yep.
but it's not even like normal business. It's like we were selling business supplies. It just wouldn't feel the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
There's the number of things that don't go right in restoration. How much of that is the fact that we don't know anything else and maybe other industries have the same level of crazy? Or is this really endemic to
no.
this industry?
Okay, watch this. First of all, we know that it's that. Because first of all, there is nobody here, and I do mean nobody, who landed here by aiming at it. Okay?
Yes. I'm writing this
Okay.
down. I got a blank piece of paper for you today. I am
Okay.
writing shit down.
So you backed into this one day and you were just here, okay?
Yep.
And you just rinsed and repeated and just kept going, right? Well, I mean, you got to at least admit on some level, if you stayed, you're either stupid, broken, or just a glutton for punishment. You know,
Well,
I'll give you a great example. Watch this. People that do sales, just straight up do sales, they have one characteristic that all people who do sales do. They do not compute no.
Well, they don't hear it the same.
It doesn't. When somebody says no, it just says, "Oh, you haven't agreed yet." It is that. I mean, and if you, they've even set up like things where they track their minds, and they're like, they don't get any dopamine from it. They don't get any rise in their cerebral cortex. I mean, they're literally just, just like,
does not compute.
yeah, okay. And so the thing is that I think about is that you know, like, I'm actually captivated by it because I don't totally understand it for everybody, but I will say that most people that play in this business got into it and initially stayed in it because you were doing good work and making a living. Like, there was something more to it than just getting a paycheck.
The X's and O's used to be a whole lot more attractive.
Yeah, and
used to be.
And now it like, I feel like for the guys who do the mitigation work, I mean those people might as well be like gambling junkies,
Right?
Because
they're rolling
they're
dice
putting
every
it
time.
all on the dime every time they roll to another job.
Yep.
You know,
but there's so many people. The vision is the perception is there's so many people absolutely killing it out there.
right?
They think everyone that responds to a cat comes back a millionaire. That's the perception somehow. When in reality, now everyone that comes back from cat has a long tail AR problem.
Yeah. I mean, just go look at the number of people who do that work who are no longer married. I'm just being straight with you. They're no longer married. Why are they no longer married? Because, you know, when you mortgage the house to pay payroll, it does something special to your spouse.
Adds, yeah.
And I mean, I think
do we have any stats on that? I would guess the divorce rate amongst restorers is probably double average.
I think what we ought to do personally is I think we ought to spend some time on things like that. I think we ought to. I think we're going to win in this. I think we're going to win in this industry by doing something that nobody saw coming. I think we're going to get honest about what it does to you. I mean, there is a reason there is a huge number of people in recovery in our business because we have turned to the bottle so much because it's just really hard. And I mean, a lot of people don't want you to say that, okay? They don't want to say that that we're human. If you think
Why?
about the whole cat thing, we're tough. We're the cavalry. I mean, it's this rah-rah. And like, even my dog shows his emotion sometimes. And no, I mean, I just think that we're going to have to start dealing with people's mental health better so that they can make better decisions, keep their support structures in place. I worked with a contractor, Andy, this last cat, and I just said, listen to me. You can take cash from Miss Smith to stabilize. You can do basic demo. You can do whatever it is you can do for the cash that Miss Smith has. And then you put the rest of it on an invoice, on a contract, and say, as soon as you can pay me for this, I'll be right back to finish.
Mm-hmm.
I said, otherwise, you're going to have $2 million on the street again.
Yep.
And you're going to be calling me for Christmas money.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, he did call me for Christmas money a few years back. I mean, I'm just saying,
Right.
It's, the guy's owed, way beyond somebody's normal annual revenue.
Way.
You know?
And we don't talk about that though, because if that's true, then that means we have a problem. Then that means we might have to do something about the problem.
Well, exactly. And what I think is like what we do in what a lot of what I do, a lot of what you do is like public intervention. I like to ask hard questions. I do.
Right.
I like to ask hard questions. I like it when it makes people really uncomfortable. I like when they have inconsistencies of logic. That's my favorite thing to play with. Okay. Well, one of the inconsistencies of one of the inconsistencies of the game is mitigations guys don't get O&P.
Right.
Which is, I'm not sure I'm supposed to say this, but it's a crock of shit.
It is.
Because what you're inviting them to do is have to figure out how to make a profit in another way.
Yeah.
And they've got to be
in a less open way.
Right.
Because what's more open, what's more transparent than using a markup?
Exactly. And, I just think that what we're going to have to do is, I think we're going to have to put pressure on the system. Okay. But how we're going to put pressure on the system is not giving unauthorized loans.
Right.
To every insured on the planet waiting for
uncollateralized.
Yeah, uncollateralized. That's right. And like, do you do work for people without a credit card?
Not anymore.
Right. Because you spend all your damn time collecting money because, yeah. And I think that the way we could say it to the restorers is this, though. And I think this may work better. Sweet says that restorers are white collar workers.
Okay.
That are thought of as blue collar, because what we ask them for is a level of expertise that's practically engineering based. Does it make sense? They've got to know science to play the game. Okay. They have to know. They have to have science, rigorous process, standards, all kinds of things. Okay. And they have to do reporting on it.
They have to understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so understand physics.
So let's talk about what white collar guys in our business, how they get paid. Let's talk about engineers. How do they get paid? They get paid before you turn the report in. Do you know how the roofers get paid? They get paid first.
Up front.
They may not get paid up front, but let me tell you, you won't find a roofer that's waiting to get paid from a carrier very long. You won't, because they usually that's the first money out. And most of the time they've already had the insured sign up and say, you understand, if they don't pay me in 30 days, you do. Thank you. And they're not bashful about it. It is an incurred cost. Pay it. And I just think that we need to start acting like other people in the business. Like it's not wrong for a contractor, just a recon contractor, to say, Ms. Smith, I'm going to need 30% of that up front.
It's understood. It's accepted.
It's not some shite. And so the thing is, I think we have to, at some point, we have to pivot and stop acting like a bunch of grunts. And
because we are treated with the level of respect that we demand.
Yes. There you go.
And I forget who said this to me first, but in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you tolerate.
Boy, that's true.
Tolerate.
That's painful to the core.
Ooh. Because that puts all the onus on the person who is whining about their life situation. Well, you tolerated, even like like your kids grow up in a certain way and they do certain things. Well, you tolerated that behavior early on, and now it's an established behavior. You get what you tolerate, you get what you accept. So we have to raise our standards. But the first person we have to raise those standards for is ourselves. We have to set down the parameters of what am I willing to do and what am I not willing to do. I am not willing to bankroll these jobs. I am not willing to do work without some sort of deposit. I am willing to up my documentation game. I am willing to do next level data collection and reporting. So, but there is enough people in this industry, they're doing work for free, that why would the world at large expect anything different from us?
Well, and that's why you gotta get to a point that your lowest form of worker in the business will risk his entire business to work for you, but nobody else will.
Mm-hmm.
I was handling an umpire gig, and one of the appraisers was saying to me that this stabilization was just ridiculous.
Okay. Was this?
And I said,
"Well, have something to do with the David Sweet thing we were just watching, or something different?"
No.
Okay. Right.
Because in this particular case, they had stabilized it for like 51 days.
That feels like a lot.
It feels like a lot, but it also is that they were communicating with the carrier every day, every single day. They were not running up crazy bills. I mean, it was steady as she goes. Okay. I mean, like it was not nearly as expensive as it could have been. They were doing the bare minimum they could do to meet the measure of containing the loss.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the appraiser, I said, I need to understand your theology. If they weren't supposed to do the stabilization, what do you want them to do? He said they should have gone ahead and done the work. And I said, okay.
That's what he said.
So I said, yeah. And I said, so they were to go ahead and do $132,000 worth of work
based on
when you guys ultimately only paid them $30,000. I said, so let me just ask you this. Is that a good business decision to not do the $132,000 worth of work without some cognitive nod from the carrier?
Did he have an answer?
He said, they should have done the work.
Wow.
Because then they probably wouldn't have been given such guff about it. And I'm like, but you understand, I said, I run my business and all my life off of what I call the rule of 20. Okay. So I take any problem that I have, I multiply it by 20. And if it is an untenable situation, then it constitutes an emergency. I have to deal with that right now, because if it festers, it's going to be catastrophic. Okay. And so I just explained to him, I said, so let's just assume for a second that they did $132,000 worth of work on 20 locations. And they were paid, instead of paying a couple of $1 million, they were paid like $100,000.
600,000. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, whatever the case, I did the math for him, but I said, but you see, I said, so what would happen is, I said, that guy would go out of business. He'd be completely gone.
He'd be gone.
Over. He would sell his equipment. He would pay his people. He would do the best he could, and he would be penniless.
It would be the last day. He's up.
And I said, so let me just ask you again. I said, do you think it's a good idea for them to go ahead and do the work? And he says, if they want to be in this business, they have to act that way.
Well, there's one of those shadow standards.
And I said, okay. So I said, so let me ask you this. I said, do we do the same thing with like reconstruction people? I said, when you have to agree to a scope for recon, I said, do you want them just go ahead and do the work and then you work it out later? Or do they wait until it's settled so that we can figure out what our job is? He says, we wait. And I said, do you now understand from a theology level, you're very inconsistent in your thinking?
Yeah. Was this guy an IA carrier side? Or was he?
He was a building consultant that only works for carriers.
Okay.
But I mean, if you just unpack that whole situation, you can see how baked in the cake that is.
Yep.
What if the thing that was said was, we're going to stabilize this for the next 15 days, and then we are going to depart.
Yes. We're going to
be gone because we've noticed you that our liability stops here. We've got a waiver from our insured. We can't do anything. We can't just go out of business doing this. Yep. So we're going to do this for 15 days, and then the problem's going to start getting worse.
Man,
okay?
I agree. I agree 1000%. There's a point where we have to stand up for ourselves. And if it wouldn't take much, I don't think. I would say if 1/4 of the current mitigation workload across the country, 1/4 of those people said, hey, we've given you notice, we've stabilized, we're out until and if we get verification that this is actually a job that we're going to get paid for, we're out. I don't think it would take maybe 10% of the restorers just taking their toys and going home. That would change.
Imagine this phone call. The insured calls up and says, "Hey, I can't get this done until you guys approve it." That's a different conversation than my contractor's just dying on the vine here.
Yep.
I'm just saying that it's not a bad idea to pivot.
It's the longer the equipment stays on a job site, the less likely it is that that equipment's going to get paid for. That's it. And in this insidious idea that restorers owe it to the insured public to do all this work front loaded with zero money out of pocket, zero money out of the insured pocket. That idea, if you really just talk about it, it sounds ludicrous. But why is that accepted here?
Well, because what they did was they baked it in the cake in a way that, if I say the same lie over and over again, it becomes the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And here's the thing. Okay. If like I walked out of it was a total of 50 umpire jobs, and I asked both of the appraisers after we're done with our work, I say, hey, if Miss Smith had replaced her roof for $25,000 and the roof was done and she had a contract, would there be any problem in the entire claims business that would mean that she wasn't paid for that? And every one of them go, no, it's cool. I said, if the insured had $1,000 worth of contracted work that was done for mitigation that had already been produced and that was incurred, I said, would that meet the same ease as getting that done? And almost every single one of them is like, well, I mean, that's a little different. And then I'd ask them all, how's it different?
How's it different?
How's it different? I said, to be honest with you, the guys that were dealing with the life safety issues, instead of the guys who were trying to stop water from coming in, those guys are the important people. They're the only guy they're the only people in the entire process that worry about your grandmother's problems with immunity.
Right.
They're the only person that recognizes that your daughter respirates at a higher level, and so stuff in the air is going to mess with her worse.
Yep.
I said, and if they don't know that and they don't do that, they have liability for it. I said, that roofer doesn't have to know anything but 6 nails, baby.
That's it.
I mean, it's staggering. I just think I don't mind you picking a rule book as long as we can stick with it. Okay, whatever that rule book is. But you can't tell me that restorers are not real businesses.
Well, that's what it is. That's what it comes down to. We're not real businesses. We don't have real needs. We're all making obscene amounts of money.
Yeah. You know what you could do though? One thing that we could do, like right now,
all right,
is we could recognize that the equipment cost has been artificially raised because of the staggering lowness of the labor hours. And so what really is the labor is like a lost leader, and then the equipment's where you make your money.
Mm-hmm.
You could lower your equipment cost a little bit if you just use your labor and charge them what your appropriate rate for the labor is.
You could.
And it's what that guy who pulled the roof off of the the guy that pulled the roof off of the house next door, you know what he made? He made the same damn wage as he did when he was replacing the roof. Okay,
when he was tearing the roof off.
But in industry terms, they say, oh, that's demo. We don't pay that for that, but their insurance rates to do that, because they're pulling stuff off the roof at above 14 feet, is the highest in the industry.
Yeah, their liability and workers' comp. 100%.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think about too with restorers that I don't ever hear anybody talk about is, to me, restorers carry tremendous liability for their own workers' health.
They do.
And I never hear that cognitive understanding be presented as kind of a first cause.
Or as far as costs or pricing or
anything. Well, like I'll give you an example. Okay. We're going to remove water damaged whatever from the structure in 14 places. If we're doing it right, we're doing containment around each of those areas. Yep. We have to have PPE for people in those areas, for the stuff we know about and the stuff we don't know about.
Right.
we also have to protect the insured at the same time by not cross-contaminating their structure, whether it be silica or microbial or asbestos containing materials, whatever. Okay.
Or just excess dust.
Yeah. And and like they're perfectly willing not to protect that employee because people don't understand that that's part of the mix. They see the work, but they don't see the employee. They don't see the person doing the work. And I kind of hold the industry a little bit accountable for this, because if I was a restorer, I would be loud and proud and talking to people in public about what I do and how we do it and why it's the safest that we can do. I would be talking about what we do for the insured. I would be talking about what our cost is. I would be talking about all of it. I would talk about it a lot,
Yeah. Instead of downplaying it.
And it's because we have this idea that, is it Surf Pro? Like it wasn't even there. Is it Surf Pro?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that sad? I don't even know. I know their slogan, but I can't even remember which company it is.
Yeah, that's Surf Pro. Like it never happened.
I have a task for you, Andy. I do. You got to find this, okay? You got to find it. You got to find this, okay? There is a advertisement from Paul Davis from the early 80s.
Is the 3-day dry?
The 3-day dry. We need to find the three because it's like having a pandemic and finding the first infected. It's what it is. I mean, because I think if we had that, we could have that, just that tool. We could talk about why this isn't true.
I know I've seen it. I know I have actually seen it with my eyes. I just got to find it.
I haven't been able to find it. I've looked through every resource I know, and I cannot find it.
Well,
the problem is that people don't recognize it as having any value, so it's not archived in any particular way.
Right, but it was in a trade. It wasn't it?
It was in a couple of different things. It was in. They put it like in newspapers, and they put it, they was it, and then they sent it. And then they did it in like adjuster magazines and stuff.
It was like mid-90s, wasn't it? Anyway, I'll find it. I know.
Yeah, if you could find it, that would be
I'll put the
freaking
awesome. We'll hunt it out.
Okay. Yeah. So how's business?
Up and down. I am diversifying in a major way. I went down on a limb last year and took on a partner and started a business, which I ended up having to walk away from. I gave you the inside story on that. Mm-hmm. But coming back to claims delegates, I just found out, honestly, David, I didn't have the energy to rebuild it all. I know. I've got a couple estimators. We're doing good work, but really I think the future of McCabe is appraisal, PA work, appraisal umpire, PA work, litigation support, i.e. expert witness, and then education. I'm looking forward to getting, I've got the community built offline, and it's online, but it's off Facebook, and building in the big part of next year is me building out several courses and building a educational foundation. So that's where I'm headed mentally.
Yeah.
Doing this dance on the estimating side is hard.
Look, I got to tell you, I told my wife one day, I said, well, I'm having a problem with such and such. They're being like a little weird. And it was one of my employees that I've had for a long time. And she said, well, you might have to replace the employee. I'm like, oh, no, you don't understand. I'll shut down that whole division. I'm not doing that again.
I'm not doing that again. No, I'm unwilling.
No. I'm like, no, we're working.
Unwilling.
Yeah. No, I mean, but it does. It's, the one thing I'd say that has been really hard over the last few years is that if just with all the other aggravations of the industry, we have always been recession proof
up until this point,
but we found out that we were not inflation proof. And that was, and it was hard to reckon with the fact that some of your cheapest work became a luxury relative to inflation.
Yeah. So what have you seen in the market?
Well, like you take like Florida, like with the public adjusters. Okay, they first of all put a 30-day right of rescission for the public adjusters. So as a public adjuster, the stuff you do in the first 30 days is really important, right?
So these guys aren't doing that now, right? They're waiting.
They're doing it. But what happens is these people start realizing money's coming the door and they just cancel the contract they don't have to have a cause. And And so does somebody want you to inspect a loss and write an estimate and spend those dollars? And the answer is maybe, but it's worrisome. But I mean, because it's, and then I've also had like people that I never had do this ever call me up and say, hey, I got this large loss and I want you to do it and bill me later. I'm like, so let me get this straight. I said, so you want me to spend like 140 hours of labor time there, and you want me to carry that cost and the per diem and the labor. And this is one of the reasons why I was thinking about the restorers, by the way. And then you want me to write the estimate, and that's going to take probably about 70 hours. And you want me to just hold it.
Just carry it.
I said, how long would you want me to carry it? He goes,
time is free.
Till I start receiving some money. He says, I'm going to be giving you a huge amount of my fees,
which are dependent upon.
I'm like, but I'm like, well, how do I do that? Like, how do you do that? Like, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times. I mean, it becomes untenable.
That model doesn't work.
And that's why I think about the restorers a lot, is because they are asked to do stuff that when I'm asked to do it, I'm like, whoa, I'm going to kill my business doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a 911. Like, I have people that work for me that go, you better not take that deal. I'll quit. Because they know it's bad.
Yep.
And so, and then it just, I don't know. And then like,
I've had more people, they know they need me, but they try to find the cheapest way to get me.
Yeah. The Facebook Messenger.
There's that. I stopped responding. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't respond to all those inquiries.
Yeah. It's a lot, but no, I mean, but nowadays I do have people call me more to want to pay me to help them figure something out on the stuff they're doing.
Sure.
Because they need some help. But I just think from the restorer standpoint, okay, I think we need to have a huge Get Honest series that goes on here. Okay. A Get Honest. Okay. And how do we get honest? We get honest about not being able to produce our work endlessly without getting paid. We get honest that we have to charge appropriately for our labor or go out of business.
Yep.
We have to understand that we are white collar workers that are doing a very important task, which includes life safety, which makes you, in our society, if you do life safety, you're one of the most important people. Start acting like the most important people. Okay. And I just think that they've got to find a way. And I think this is something you can do, Andy, is I think we need to be able to say I think we need to figure out a way to explain to restorers how to communicate with the insured about what and why. This is what's happening. This is what and why. These are your risks. These are the things, and I can't do this for you without getting paid. It's not that I don't want to do it.
It's such a big part of what we do. And it doesn't get done at the franchise level because we're already working on bare bones margins, right? They're not going to do anything higher level. But the guys that could ostensibly afford to train their guys in order to have this higher level of bedside manner is what it comes down to. And I like to get honest, because what a lot of restorers try to do is they hide the truth because they fear that, well, if I tell them how much it's going to be, it's going to scare them off. Well, if your number scares you, maybe it's not the right number. But if the insured understands what they're receiving in exchange for that dollar amount, that's a much easier conversation to have.
Right. But I mean, like here's the thing, Andy, I'm really sorry you had this water loss. I know this is very stressful for your family. I know it puts you in a real funky place where you don't know what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And if you should trust your adjuster or whatever the case may be. It's just, I have to talk to you while you're in trauma. And I want you to know I understand that. So if I seem like I'm being too simple with you, it's just that I want you to understand me because I know where you are. Okay? If you just bow at somebody and understand where they are, just acknowledge where they are, it changes the way you're able to talk to them at that point. And then you're able to say, your insurance company, in fact, owes you for this. I can't do the work for free, hoping they'll pay us. If you want to pay us now and are able to do so, I will proceed. But if you can't, and it's not anything against you, most people can't. That's why you have insurance. I would like you
True.
to take this that I'm giving
True.
you, and I'd like you to call your insurance carrier and tell them that you've selected your vendor and we need this scope approved and paid for. And I mean, they could go to work if they've already made an agreement to pay for it, because then the insured can obligate themselves with no issue, right?
Right. Right.
But I mean, like, just that simple pivot, it makes all the difference. I mean, it's like when I walk into an insured's house that I'm the umpire for, I say, hey, this is going to be done in about a week. You're going to be one of the first people to know, because I'm going to drop something in your email about 5 minutes after it's settled. There's going to be a bill in there that you have to pay right away. I don't want you not to pay that bill or misunderstand that it's due right away, because if you don't, it gets much more expensive. And you would be surprised at the number of people who try not to pay me. Okay. For most people, that's a terribly hard thing to say to somebody. But you cannot be a business if you don't get paid.
Well, you're not. What it comes down to, I think there's a mentality of folks, especially in the trades, not traditionally educated, they didn't come up through big business, and I do it still to this day. It's a problem I have is I send invoices thinking about my checking account, and it's like everything that goes out of them, like, oh shoot, that's a lot of money, because it's a lot of money to me. Instead of, what's the appropriate fee? What's our contract say? What did we agree to? And as long as my contract is legit and I did what I said I would do, this is the rate. This is the bill.
You know what my favorite thing to say is? Oh, you didn't like the bill? What was it? And they go, what do you mean? You don't know what your bill is? I'm like, no, I don't. I fill out forms, and those forms get turned into a bill, but I never know what that is, because otherwise I'd be working towards a bill number, not a resolution. And I work for the resolution. And they're like, no, and the other thing to remember, and I think that the restorers have got to understand this, is most people are perfectly willing to let you work for lunch money. They're perfectly comfortable with that.
Yes.
I mean, comfortable with that. I mean, and the thing is, if you change the way you did it, the other thing it could do for you is stop making you a damn claims professional.
Yeah.
I mean, because really what they're doing to the restorers is they're making them claims professionals.
Yeah. They're putting them in between.
I mean,
they're wedging them.
If I needed to know about a desk adjuster somewhere, I could just probably put it on a form somewhere, and a restorer is going to tell me about them. Not even an adjuster.
Right.
Because they're dealing with them all the time. And I just don't think that's a great way to work.
It isn't. But the reason,
but it's perverted.
But the reason, what's the reason, David? Why are we sitting?
The reason is because objects under pressure tend to respond, and so they didn't want to pay for this, so you made a scientific form to explain it. They didn't want to pay for this, so you made pictures and you labeled them in this way. They didn't want to pay for it, so you made moisture maps. They didn't want to pay it, so you got all your calculations and explained the standard and blah, 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 blah. And after a while, you were like going to grad school every time you did a claim.
Every single time.
It is what it is. Like you can't, and see what the people, there would be people that watch this and go, that's because those mitigation guys are just scammers. You can pay for that. You can pay for that air mover in a week.
In a week, you own that equipment.
I mean, where do you think that equipment has to go?
It was last year, a year and a half ago, I was in a panel, and I had drafted my opinion of the repair costs, and I had used a price list from Portland, Oregon that I had previously used for a client. That price list was not the off-the-shelf price list from Xactimate. It had things built into it that...
Oh, you mean you did your job?
Yeah, exactly.
You did your job.
Looked at the market.
Congratulations.
Looked at market realities and adjusted the pricing accordingly. But it came down to the panel, the umpire and the opposing was from a carrier side. They were both IAs or IA adjacents. And it came down to, and I asked them straight up, okay, how much do contractors deserve to make? How much profit do contractors deserve to make? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about, we were dialed in on scope. Everything was, except they wanted to pay, throw in $150 for a bundle of shingles and I wanted to pay 200, whatever. And they said, well, there's money built in. There's profit built in. But the
There is
one question
profits built into the line items, don't you know?
profit built into the line items. Well, and I asked him straight up, and this panel probably would not vote for me if I was running for president, but I said, well, if there is profit built in there, then you should be able to quantify that for me. You should be able to tell me exactly how much profit is built into this job. And one of the guys said, what do you think one of the guys said?
That's
20%.
nuts.
No, he said there's 20%. I said 10 and 10. Okay, so 10 and 10 is a markup. That's a 20% markup. So you're saying there's a 20% profit margin in this job? And he said, yes. And then we had to get out an Excel spreadsheet to go through the difference between a markup and a margin. And at the end of the day, I think maybe they understood it. I don't know if they did for sure. But a 20% markup is only a 16% gross margin if everything in that job goes perfectly. So what contractor out there works on a 16% margin besides restorers, right?
Right.
This whole idea that there's plenty of money built in, but no one that says those words can actually quantify what they mean. And I have thrown out challenges across the board to whoever has said that to me. I just spit it right back to them. Okay, show me. Show me how much. If you know for sure there's profit built in, you should be able to calculate how much profit is built in. No one has yet to show me how much profit is built in. Because guess what? There's no fucking profit built in.
Right. The thing is, like this is really easy stuff. I mean, this is not heavy lifting.
Fancy, right? It's not calculus.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Watch this. And I tell people this all the time, and it sometimes it makes them really happy and sometimes it makes them really angry. But, if the drywall is costing twice what's in Exactware, then you have to address it appropriately. But if you're in South Florida and you have a $2,700 per square concrete tile roof, you probably need to bring that price down because it's too high.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to do it this way, you have to do it this way. You've got to be consistent across the board. And that sometimes makes people really aggravated because sometimes that means that you say, well, we can buy it over here for this price and here for this price. And, but like as an estimator, I don't care where you are in the business, whether you're really an estimator, you're an appraiser, you're an umpire, you're a PA, you're an IA. I don't care who you are. Exactware says it's your responsibility to figure out what the hell the prices are.
In more than one place, they tell us.
The prices is. That's some terrible English, isn't it? I was educated in English. The prices is. No, but no, I guess it's this. Like, and I don't really understand this, okay? Like, the happiest day in my life is Wednesday at 2 p.m. every week.
Okay.
Because that's the day I make payroll. That's the day that everybody, they get sucked out of the account and everybody's going to get paid the next day. And my rule of thumb is when I sign payroll, as long as I'm feeling really good about all those people on that list, it's a joyous thing to do.
Sure.
Because I don't want them just to get by. I want them to have a good life so that they can continue to bring a good life back to me. But I'm weird. I'm some kind of nutbag. Because, like I had somebody just the other day say about one of my field team, they had told me that guy's amazing. And I said, yeah, he is. He's been around here for 10 years. He should be really good. Even if he was stupid, he should have soaked up enough to be really good by now. And then he followed up. He says, but you obviously pay him too much because I can't afford having him on my job. I'm like, then get somebody less qualified. But I need somebody that's that qualified. I just can't. I just don't want to pay that much for it.
He didn't want to. He had a problem with your rate.
Yeah,
and he was saying, he knew that your rate, his pay was baked into that rate, and he didn't want to pay your rate.
Yeah, and I that same individual, by the way, we adequately market priced one of his very large losses once, and the job came in at $3.5 million over where anybody expected it.
Where did it settle at?
It didn't just pay for my fees. It paid him way big. And no,
that's why you do what you do.
I appreciate you being a PA, but I couldn't do it ever. Not a day.
I try not to. I really try not to.
I mean, Andy, my ALE's going to run out in 3 months and the carrier hasn't paid, and my husband's at Walmart crying in the parking lot saying he's going to leave me.
Yes.
No. That's why I call them
Yeah.
superheroes. They're amazing. Like, because I could never do it.
The good ones are. The good ones
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And
But
I don't, the reason I'm getting my PA's license is not so I can do a bunch of PA work.
I know. I know.
It's strictly for air cover because you're right. You are married to that thing. You're married to that person, that insured, that loss for 1 year plus.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally married. These guys don't understand that I don't work for them 24 hours a day. Yeah, it's tough, not easy. But we get the same thing on the contractor side. Let's be real.
I know. I mean, anytime you step inside of a structure, I call it the intimate work because it requires a level of intimacy with your insured that's beyond normal.
Yeah. And if you're not bringing honesty, I'm going to circle back to that. I mean, I think the hashtag Get Honest campaign is going to start.
No, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I do.
Not that intimacy, that bedside manner, the fastest way to build that connection and trust is to be 100% honest, even with the stuff that scares you to say.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be $15,000. What? It's just one bathroom. Yeah, let's talk through it. Instead of, oh, I don't know how much it's going to be. Just sign here. And then we just get that slam, that surprise. I say this a lot too. No invoice should be a surprise to your client. If they are surprised by your invoice, you did something wrong before you sent that invoice. And you deserve to catch the flack. Because if the insured's surprised for it, you're damn sure the adjuster's surprised with it. And the adjusters don't like surprises, right? And you're going to get 50 cents on a dollar like everyone else.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that I got to tell you this funny thing about our store. This is like the stuff that this is the lore that makes our business fun sometimes. So this guy calls me up 2 weeks ago and he says, David, I got a problem. I need some help. I'm like, sure, what you got? He goes, one of my lead guys he's having sex with the insured.
Okay.
And I said,
whoa.
like right now. He goes, no, I'm not watching it. It's just happening every day. And I'm like,
okay. OMG.
And so he says, I'm not sure what I should do. I said, are you close to finish to the job? He goes, yeah. I said, have him handle the invoicing. I said, and then after he gets you paid, you're going to fire him.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it's like, of all the things somebody was going to say to me out loud, like, I've got a problem, David. Like, I get called with stuff like, hey, I made this deal with Alacrity to move a desk that cost $77,000 for $137. And I don't know what to do because I'm scared to death. Because, I'm like, well, too bad. You made the deal. Call somebody and lose your shirt or get the Amex out.
Holy smokes. So what the last video we did, we unintentionally put in some badger bait.
Now there's a hashtag badger bait.
And I don't have a problem with that.
No, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I actually appreciate Badger on one level. He at least brings about some things to talk about.
Exactly.
And from the carrier perspective, he's actually writing into that. And I don't agree with him on everything, and I think he's an asshole sometimes.
Sure. Right.
And I'm fine with anything until he disparages my character. Okay.
Yeah,
like I think he's kind of a prick, but I'm not disparaging his character. He probably does a really good job for his client.
Well, he is an attorney. Oh.
And I'm sure he has like people in his family that love him because he's a pretty decent guy. Or maybe not. But I'm not, that's not but my point is just simply that it's okay. But I do find it interesting that when we say the quiet part out loud, it causes a visceral reaction by some.
Like knee jerk.
And I don't quite understand it. The last thing that Badger was on was I made a comment about the fact that I was about to have an empty chair appraisal that I was the umpire on. Because one of the appraisers was completely MIA.
Yep.
I got worked over like 9 kinds of ways by everybody who does training. And but incidentally, by
Oh,
the
you
way,
mean appraisal training?
yeah, appraisal
Oh,
training is.
yes.
Yeah.
Who
I mean, I do some
certified the certifiers of that, by the way?
I do some appraisal training, but I do not provide a
Certificate?
I do not provide a certificate of completeness. I had a guy,
Nor should you.
speaking about certificates, I had a guy in North Carolina tell me that one of his clients, he's a PA, and one of his clients had gotten a certificate, given them a certificate of dryness. Certificate of dryness.
Wow. Sounds
It's
like
like,
something moisturizer could take care of.
no, but there's nobody in our business, okay? Everybody in our business, in the whole tribe, okay? The whole claims tribe, we do something in our business that is archaic and incongruent with other things in our world. Every one of us do it.
What's that?
We do something that's not in our best interest.
Okay.
We do
Sure.
something that's not ethical. We do something that doesn't fit with the logic why we're in business.
Mm.
And I mean, like 2 years ago, I had this guy we do a lot of business with, so I just let it ride. And $40,000 later, he's in jail and we're never getting paid.
You're never getting paid. Yep.
Okay. But that's something incongruent with what I do as a business. I acted in an incongruent way that was illogical. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that
You made a feeling decision.
everybody in our business does that to some degree. And the one area that I see it as stark as it possibly can be is with the restorers. You do all the life safety work, all the stuff that's going to keep somebody from being damaged long term or even short term.
You cover all the costs.
Yeah. And then you are expected to be daddy warbucks.
Mm-hmm. You are.
And
because
I don't
you're
know.
making so much money.
I know nobody anywhere that can work for 50% for 50 cents on the dollar. I don't know anybody. If you can make 50 cents on a dollar, you'd have to have a cost basis of like 20%.
Right.
And we know the cost basis is much higher than that. Much.
The average overhead for restorers is way north of 20%. Business overhead.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think it would be a great intervention if we could get the restorers to do that, because I think that would help the entire industry to straighten up some of the things they do. I mean, keep in mind, we still have a lot of contractors that give unauthorized loans to the insureds and the carriers that they carry for years and years and years and years.
Well, keep in mind, it doesn't go without saying, that is institutionalized vis-a-vis the programs. The programs require them to do this work without getting paid up front. And a lot of the sins we're paying for as the industry at large is thanks to these programs, and the people that are implementing these programs and running these programs think that the rest of the world should adhere to their rules, which is absurd. But we are getting measured against guys that just they have a different business model. You do program work, you have a different business model.
Well, like, I have a question for you. You probably don't know what the average rate for a framer is in Sheboygan.
I do not.
Okay. But I'll bet you do know what the average restorer rate is in Sheboygan. And you know what that labor cost is. Mm-hmm. You know what the training cost is. You know what the equipment maintaining cost is, the transportation cost is, the insurance cost is. I mean, like, nobody even thinks about the level of insurance that they've got to carry.
No. Pollution.
We're dealing with hazardous health things, and you think that that's going to be cheap?
Yeah. You think a pollution policy is cheap?
Yeah, exactly.
And then heaven forbid you have one claim, and now you're what's it, effect ratio? What's the workers' comp?
It's a loss run, which makes your price
doing
go up.
You're doing a 2-3x multiplier now. I mean, there's guys that went out of business because they couldn't afford to carry the insurance.
I let my in-house counsel go a while back, and he decided to sue me because I guess that's what attorneys try to do. And when I did a counterclaim, he tried to file it on my errors and omissions coverage.
Wow.
So the errors and omissions coverage people, it was hilarious. They go, the guy that called me up, he goes, I'm just really calling you up on this because it's kind of interesting to me because I've been doing this for 20 years and no one's ever done this. And he said, it's kind of like insurance fraud. I'm like, yeah, kind of. And he's like, I can just kick it. I'm like, nah, I got to ask the attorneys. And they're like, no, you got to write us a denial. So now I've got to
Yep.
Now I've got a claim activity that I've never had before.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it's loads of fun. Of course,
Now
then
you're,
I
it's going to be modified.
also I've had 2 insurance claims
Mm-hmm.
on my house.
And you live in Florida. You're going to be uninsurable.
I keep trying to get my wife to go to God's country up by you.
We got room. I tell you what, when I build my compound, we'll put a mixed use commercial space on it, and we'll have a world headquarters.
Yeah, I have some land here that we're gonna build the herring compound on.
Mm. Ever tell you about my time in Utah?
No,
There's a book called Under the Banner of Heaven. It's about a particular sect of Mormonism that has staked out a actual town in Utah.
those are the people that took over the town, right?
Well, they kind of absorbed the whole town.
Yeah,
So there's no one that lives there that's not part of this particular sect.
right.
And so one day, on a whim, on my way back from Reno Airport, I was like, I'm going to drive through that town. So I did. This came up because compounds. I said the word compound. So you drive into this town, and first off, coming in, and I was like, it's not that big of a town. So I was like coming in, and I got off the highway, and there's some parks, and there's some kids and some women, but I'm looking at the houses, and these are not houses, these are compounds. And you could tell the people with money had actual houses. They all had 8 and 10 foot fences and houses and connected houses. But the people that didn't have a lot of money had connected manufactured homes and RVs, but they were all connected in the compounds. I was like, well, that's one way to do it. Just start buttoning them up against each other and build a compound. But the craziest thing is, so 2 blocks, 3 blocks in, I started to turn around, and I come back up 1 block and come back this way. By the time I got there was nobody on the street. And then by the time I got back to the highway, there was 5 or 6 men standing on different corners watching me. No kids, no women. They'd all disappeared, but they're like strangers in town. Anyway, compounds.
Well, that's crazy. No, I won't shoot you if you come to my compound.
Yeah, I got out quick. I got a bad feeling. The spidey senses started going off.
Yeah, that sounds like a very Utah thing.
Yeah, very much Utah.
Yeah, I guess you got a big week coming?
I don't know. No, not huge.
I do. I have to go to Tennessee.
You're doing a lot of traveling still.
I am. Not going to lie to you. I have always done work in lots of places, but if you want to take me to someplace besides Florida, I'm Johnny on the spot. I will come.
I get it.
Because we have an unstable insurance market and an unstable government.
Mm-hmm.
And that may sound really rude to somebody, but we could get that kind of treatment in Cuba. And I mean, they hit the insured hard. They basically just went on a war against consumer protection. And Jimmy Patronis is going to is running to be my new congressman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a war. It's a war on the insured public, and Florida is ground zero. That's the front line.
Well, I mean, part of the problem in Florida, though, is, and this is why it's not like people used to follow Florida, but I don't think there's anything to follow right now. But like, let me give you an example. In Florida, you can ask any PA you want. If they were to type up a memo and send it to the Department of Insurance to say this insurance carrier is doing X, which is outside of right or whatever, I've heard that it's as little as 7 minutes later. DFS opens up an investigation on the PA.
Really?
Well, that means you're going to have a clouded license there and everywhere else you work for the next 2 years. It's probably going to cost you $15,000. And they're going to find nothing, and they're going to find nothing wrong because they never find anything wrong. They'll do hundreds of these and find like one little thing wrong by somebody. But I mean, it's never like you're losing your license because you did something wrong. And but I mean, like, so what happens is now you just don't say anything.
Right.
You
can't afford to.
Yeah. But
I'm about to file a complaint in Washington State. I was going to do it today. I didn't get to it.
But there are places where that's acceptable. Like I do a lot of work in Kansas. And if you inform the Department of Insurance in Kansas that there's something going on, they open up a legitimate investigation. They put people in cars, they go visit people, they go get all the data, and they figure out what's going on. And that seems reasonable.
Right.
We know that it can all be different. We do, but you can't expect the world to work with you in a certain way unless you set the parameters under which you will work in that world. And that's what I want from the restorers, to start setting the parameters under which they will work.
Right. What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do?
Yeah. And you know what they think? They think if they don't get the job, then somebody's going to come in and just, some church is going to come in and do demo, and these people are going to be sick. And yes, that's going to happen.
That's going to happen. Sure. It's also not your responsibility.
But it's not your responsibility. It's not your job. And you can't fix everything.
Yeah.
And I think that at the end of the day, that's the value. I think that's one of the values you bring, Andy, because I think you're able to talk to the restorers in a way that they understand better. I appreciate like what David Sweet does, where he talks about documenting, get it ready for litigation if it ever goes there. Do it the right way. And I agree with that. But it wouldn't go that way very often if you were getting paid.
It really wouldn't.
And it might ultimately reduce the amount of paperwork you had to do because you were stating what you were doing going in.
Yeah.
And
you had guardrails and limitations. I won't go past this point. This is the line that I am unwilling to go beyond. And really, we, along with the hashtag Get Honest, it needs to be hashtag Take My Toys and Go Home.
No,
because it's not going to take very many restorers just walking off the job before someone says, well, they can't do that. Let's have a conversation.
One of the greatest lessons I ever learned in business was I had a very large law firm that had me deployed far away. Housing was expensive. Planes between the islands was visit. I mean, it was terrible. Okay. It was incredibly expensive. And they got new management at the lawyer's office, and they just sent us a note, and it was like October 20th. And they said, we'll get you paid around Christmas. And I'm like, it was due a week ago. And they said, no, this is the way it's going to be. And I hung up and I did a reply to all and says, demobilize immediately.
Yep. Demo.
And prepare final invoices, submit them, blah, 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 blah. And 2 minutes later, we got a FedEx tracking number. And I hated to do that. But at the end of the day, all I was asking was for them to work within my contract. I wasn't asking them. Right. I wasn't asking them for something special.
Right.
I mean, I'd already invested a ton of money in that. So I'd love to hear from you on what you do with this, because I think that if we can do this Get Honest thing, I think it's going to help us. I think it's going to help, because anytime we take one part of the industry and we spruce it up, it's like seeding, and it seems to move about.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll just get the carriers to let the adjusters adjust. Yeah, we'll do that.
Well, first they'd have to hire actual adjusters.
Well, out by you, what they use, Seek Now?
Not yet. I haven't seen Seek Now yet.
Oh man, out in California, they're giving all kind of stress to the IAs because these people are doing the most minimal things that they could. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
That's silly.
And somebody asked me the other day, say, you complain about that, but it's good for you.
Is it though?
And I'm like, is it good for me to handle a claim that's complex, that's hard, that just needs more help? Or is it good for me to just be Captain Obvious all the time? Yeah. All right, my friend. Well,
good to see you.
I got dinner plans with the family, and I got to go get that done. And call me next week, and let's talk a little bit more about this offline. Okay. I'll be in the great state of Tennessee. And I'm having fun with the appraisal mob there. Super fun.
All right, brother.
All right, man. You take care. It's good to see you, man.
You too.